the latest incident that I had at my job, which I cannot believe that trash days I have been having lately for the past 2 weeks. It's been increasingly difficult to make it through work, to just survive. And you guys heard my story about Saturday. And Sunday, fortunately, I had a very good day. It was smooth. I had no complaints whatsoever. Yesterday, it was starting to get a little heavy again, a little difficult again. And then I thought, well, it is what it is. You're not going to have perfect days every single day. But I keep making myself feel some type of way about how in the past I remember a time when this wasn't a thing. I could go maybe a whole year having only 1 to 2 incidents, a whole year, okay? But now at my job, it seems like every single day I have something going on, and it is in the stupidest of ways. So today I want to share with you the story of how toward the end of my shift, it was only like half an hour away from being over, the fool that I had today. It was this old lady, and she was accompanied by some man. I don't know if that was her son, if that was her husband. I don't know. I don't care. The dude was nice. She wasn't. And you have no idea what set her off. Basically, I was doing my cashiering, scanning, doing my thing. And then she decides to let the guy unload the items. And then she told me that she'll start bagging. And I acknowledge. I say, okay. And then she goes, hand me a bag. So I hand her a bag. And then she said that again. She's like, I need another bag. So I gave her one more. I thought, okay, maybe this is all she needs. And then she kept going like, okay, another bag. And then I point to her, which right across from her face, directly across from her, like within, stretch out your arm and you'll touch them level reach. She had bags that were within her reach available to her. So I pointed out to her, I'm like, they're right here. That's literally all I said. I just said, they're right here, as opposed to giving her bags from my station, like from right next to me. I show her where her bags are, or rather, the bags that are closer to her so that she can shut the fuck up telling me to give her bags. So when I said that, when I showed it to her, she goes, just hand it to me since I'm taking care of the bagging. I didn't say anything, absolutely nothing. And then she began to handle her stuff very aggressively, like pushing things, throwing things, pulling things. And her side of the counter was full already. But as I was scanning, I'm not going to push more things towards you if the counter is already pretty full. I'm going to give you some time before I push it so that I don't overwhelm you because I'm pretty fast. But instead, she decided to walk closer to me to push the items that I had just freshly scanned, to push them toward her side, as opposed to just giving me the time to wait for her to catch up with her bagging so that the clutter again does not overwhelm her. And she did this so violently. And again, I didn't say anything, but about 5, 6 seconds after I told her, they're right here, the bags are right here, and she went, just hand them to me since I'm doing all the bagging. She called me a jackass. When I heard that, the same adrenaline that I experienced on Saturday came back. Not as bad, but she didn't say it too loud, but she obviously said it loud enough for me to hear. Or maybe it slipped her. I don't know. I don't care. But this is the first time I get insulted by one of these motherfuckers in years. And especially coming from a woman, let alone an old woman, oh, that's gonna have like an even worse effect on me. I came so close to pushing the void button on my screen and being like, stop begging. I am going to very kindly request that you either recur to self checkout, meaning that they would have to load their stuff back into their cart and roll away, or give me 1 second and I'm going to call somebody to finish this transaction. I am no longer feeling safe performing this transaction. There was nothing there was nothing threatening about this bitch. It's just that I did not want to tolerate that because the point is if I let it slide just like that, she's not suffering consequences. And clearly, even though she's an old ass person, she did not get the proper education on how to conduct herself here in public. It is not my job, it shouldn't be my job to impart on you an education, manners, and things like that. But again, I have to start establishing further boundaries because it's getting to the point where I don't know if you guys have heard about the state of schools in our country right now. Teachers are not staying, everybody's quitting. And a lot of people are preferring to work from home too to avoid interacting with people. I get it. I understand. I don't feel safe sometimes when I'm at the job because you just don't know what kind of clown you're going to get. And it takes nothing, absolutely nothing, for these stupid people to be triggered. They don't even say hello to you, they'll just come up to you and start barking orders at you. There is absolutely no manners, no courtesy, nothing like that. And like I have said before, guys, I don't mind my job. Like, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. What bothers me is people's conduct. There's a difference. And like someone was saying in the comments some months ago, something like, it looks like customer service is not the right job for you. And I said, no, customer service is the right job for me. The problem is that it is not being treated with respect because like I have said before, I don't know what the hell happened to some people after the pandemic, but some people became zombies. You have no sense of how to exist out here. You're aggressive, you're violent, you're verbally abusive, you're all those things. And when you get called out on it, you're in utter denial. And you try to make it seem like I was the one who started something. Again, all I said to this lady, which by the way, I did not ask her to bag, this was her idea, this was her initiative. When she said, just hand them to me since I'm doing the bagging, I stayed quiet. And when I relayed the story to my manager, I said, let me tell you the story about this Karen that I had because let me tell you what I am going to do in the future if this happens again. First of all, if I see this lady again, I am not going to serve her. She is banned by me from my line because I am not going to forgive this. I'm not going to let it slide. It didn't offend me because I know that she got offended for no reason. It wasn't my fault. I did my job. I was being polite. I was trying to facilitate the process on her end. She misunderstood it. She didn't appreciate it. It is 187,000% her fault, not mine. So, because I know that, I don't feel bad at all, but I don't like the stress that I felt as this was happening. Because, again, it's not something I deserved. It was something completely unexpected. Clearly, this woman is bringing baggage from outside that has nothing to do with me, and she displayed it to me. And like I said, I don't feel well. I don't feel safe. I don't think I need to put up with that. And I want to make it abundantly clear that just because I'm a little ass cashier doesn't mean that I'm going to tolerate that treatment and I'm just going to be okay with it and let it slide. So I wanted to cancel that transaction so bad to inconvenience her and be like, oh, well, since you clearly are not happy with me, I'm going to cancel the transaction, which was already halfway done. And they had, it was like a cart that was half full. It honestly takes me about 3 to 4 minutes to scan, whereas for somebody else in the team, it might take them a little longer than that. But it's because I'm experienced and I know all the codes, so I can breeze through everything. But I know that if I would have canceled the transaction, of course, management is never on the side of employees, even if I tell them the full context. And even if they were to watch the footage, somehow they're going to find a way to flag me for it, to possibly write me up for it or whatever, because the most important thing is to not make the customer feel bad. And like I've said before, this is getting to the point where me as a worker, I don't feel well. I don't feel happy. I don't feel safe. I don't feel supported. And that's the kind of shit that makes you lose people, good people, which we're having a big problem with retention right now. But but like I said, I'm not a little bitch. I'm not just going to run away from a challenge. And she wasn't particularly threatening. And I think it's because of how I reacted, which was I had zero reaction. When my manager asked me, okay, when she called you a jackass, what did you say? I said nothing. And then he asked, and when she said, give me the bag since I'm doing the bagging, what did you say? And I said, nothing. You know that I don't entertain these clowns. And this is why you guys have known me through me sharing my stories, how I tell you that I deal with this and how I don't entertain people. This is why. I think that this didn't escalate at all because I resisted the urge of telling her, okay, you ain't gotta give me no attitude. And if you have a problem with me, I am going to forfeit your transaction. I'm going to void it. Somebody else is going to have to start over. You're going to have to undo your precious bagging. And this could have been avoided if you wouldn't have been such a bitch. See what I mean? But fortunately, I didn't do that. I resisted the urge, but physically, it gave me that adrenaline feeling, that rush of my chest is getting tight again. I'm annoyed, irritated because I don't get paid enough for this shit, if you ask me. And on top of that, someone like me with my trajectory, my experience, my repertoire, my record, all those things. And then I said to myself, as degrading as this feels like it is, ultimately, this is my only bad experience for the day. I'm really not gonna let this ruin me. And I always remember what my first supervisors told me when I was hired. It was something like, everything you have done so far, it has been great. You did fine. You were perfect. This, that, and the other. The only difference from me in the present versus me from back then is that in the past, I was a little shy. I felt like I had to respond to everything that a motherfucker ever said. But now I know that I have zero obligation to entertain them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with someone in a slightly higher position than the manager I had available today. I'm going to tell them the story. I'm going to tell them exactly what I'm telling you guys right now, which is, hey, we need to maybe come up with a course of action for me to take because I should be in a position where I can walk out from this clown and let somebody else handle it. But I don't think it's fair that if I save the transaction and someone else finishes on my behalf, my metrics, my performance as a cashier is now going to become the metrics of the other cashier. Which, again, as a cashier in my team, because of my experience, I'm at the top of the food chain. That's one. And second, I think that even though we're not supposed to make the customer feel any type of way, feel bad in any kind of way, feel inconvenienced in the slightest, I think that we need to show them that disrespect is not tolerated and that actions have consequences. Clearly, they don't suffer consequences at home. clearly they don't suffer consequences in their career, or maybe this lady is retired and whatever her status is, or maybe she's never had to work, whatever it is. But like I've said before, I feel like I'm enabling this conduct if I don't take action. But I want to take action in a way that is effective, which I think that me completely like walking out on this is perfectly acceptable. But I know that in the eyes of a manager, they're going to look at that as I'm not completing my job. And I'm like, well, evaluate the footage and evaluate my demeanor throughout my shift. I am committed. I'm at my workstation up until this point. All this lady had to do was being like, oh, thanks for showing me. And that's it. But instead, she decided to try to talk me down and she insulted me. She insulted me. I'm just supposed to take it? No. No. So at least I let my manager know that this person is banned by me from my line and that they need to have a plan for when this lady comes over because I'm not going to serve this bitch again. I'm not. I am going to start drawing the line. And if I run out of customers to be able to serve, oh well, too bad. Decide. But I'm really, really sick of these clowns. And I think that this has been a long term customer. And I know in the past she has given me problems maybe 3 times before, but it's been so long. And honestly, the only reason I saw her is because my schedule availability was being totally violated today. And what I mean by that is I have my preference set to be gone by a certain time of the day. But this week, this is the week I was telling you guys that I have like a full-time looking week despite me being part-time. I'm working 5 days in the week as opposed to the 3 or 4 days out of the week that I'm supposed to be scheduled for. I wouldn't have seen this bitch if I wouldn't have been scheduled today to stay as late as I did. I stayed an hour past my, I guess you can call it availability. Like my managers know what time to not schedule me past. And that's one of the primary reasons why I like to be part time because I get to decide my departure time pretty much. I'm doing that sacrifice. But if I were full time, then I have to be pretty much on call around the clock. And that's not a commitment I can make, neither at this time nor in the future. I can tell you that much. So, yeah, you guys, that was pretty much my story. That's my incident. It's just very frustrating because each day I feel like going to work is such a threatening thing now. I'm not even in healthcare. I'm not a police woman. I'm not in any of those professions where you could expect something like this, but dealing with the public is now an inherent threat, and I never felt this way before. And yesterday, when I came back from my shift, it was so demanding mentally and physically too that my boyfriend asked me when I came back. He was like, hey, how did it go? And I was like, I need to do something about my job. I need to figure out the way for me to quit it because I just cannot do this thing for another year. There is no way that I can just continue in this role. And I don't think that switching to another department is the solution. The solution is either for me to have super short shifts, maybe 2 days out of the week, work just 2 days out of the week, or maybe work just 1 day out of the week. And then somehow I just gotta figure out the way to get out of there entirely or reduce my hours that drastically. But I personally can tell that I'm like at the pinnacle there. That is as high as I can go. And it's just shame because like I've said to you guys, I genuinely like what I'm doing. I like the place. I like the act of working on a register. and interacting with people in that manner. But what I don't like is that management, for instance, because they're so alienated from the experience of the sales floor, what I would like to see is us having some kind of meeting in which we discuss how to deal with the new age of customers we have. It's like we are currently experiencing a new season of people. The clientele now behaves differently. They are less patient, they are less respectful, they are trying to figure out ways to take advantage of you. They try to be intimidating. All those things. That is the truth. But sometimes I feel like if you describe things to management in that manner, they might take it as you just don't have the skill to deal with these people. And then I will very kindly remind them who the fuck I am. I'm like, I'm an 11-year vet and I've been at the same location this entire time. I think that my word has some power around here, to the point that my immediate managers respect my opinion and they do make some workplace decisions based on based on opinions, sorry, from people such as myself and any other veterans who may linger in the team. And this is coming from my manager too. Like, he has actively told me that he's deliberately consulting me because he's consulting everybody he knows is a veteran for certain things. And I can tell because, why else would they ask you things, especially if it's about implementing things for the operation of the team. See what I mean? So, this is one of those reasons why, more than ever, I'm convinced that me taking on a higher role is not the best fit for me. Because my managers, once again, have been asking me, when are you going to move up? I think you would do great. And I'm like, I know that I will do great. The problem is that the hours are not going to be on my side. I cannot be full time. I cannot have a crazy schedule where today I might be opening, tomorrow I might be closing, the next day I may be a mid, things like that. I can't do that. That shit is fun when you're like in high school. But when you start getting up there in age, that shit is not fun at all. And it's not something that I no longer crave. That was fun for the first 2 to 3 years that I worked. But now, and like always, I realized that I need stability. I can have seasons of adventure, which a wild schedule like that might make it feel flexible and adventurous, but now I need stability because I have two businesses now, two and a half, that I'm managing, and a home and a body to take care of. And, you know, I'm not getting younger. I'm feeling this shit physically. And that's what I'm saying, that as time passes, there are some adjustments that I'm going to have to make. This is what responsible people make. But sometimes I feel like management, because they're so used to their role as managers, they become disconnected because they know of things based off the resources that they have available for themselves based on their status. But coming from someone like me, it's like, sure, on paper, I don't have a lot of power. And honestly, I'm not looking for more power. I'm looking for tools, for support, for resources. And when I'm literally more experienced than all of my managers, that kind of sucks. Because, for instance, yesterday, there was a situation that I would love to disclose to you guys, but I don't think I should at this time. But basically, I was questioning the state of one of our customers, and I consulted one of my supervisors, the highest ranking manager that we had on duty, about it. I said, hey, we know about this person who's in the premises right now. They appear to meet a certain condition in which we shouldn't be serving them. What should I do? How do I kindly refuse to this person a specific service. And he was like, well, it doesn't really look like they're matching the textbook definition of it. I think it'll be okay. And I look at that as you are dodging a potential conflict, a potential interaction that may escalate with a customer. And I understand those are scary and unpleasant, but this is what I hate. I hate that I feel like this happens to me because I'm experienced, because I'm a veteran. And the reason I say this is because in the past, when I have done something like this, my managers have been like, well, you should know how to handle this better than me because you have been here longer than me. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's not the point. I'm just a basic cashier and you are my superior. Why are you not backing me up in a situation that warrants that you be the one to take care of this? See what I mean? So, with that said, with that precedent, imagine if I, in this at this point in time, with my trajectory, if I became a manager, I feel like the expectation on me is going to be unfairly greater just because I have been around a little longer. But technically, when it comes to manager skills, they have more experience than me because I've never been a manager. But just because I've been there for a little while longer, I feel like the bar on me, the expectation on me, is going to be unfairly higher. Like suddenly, I'll be the one tackling certain things when this should be an equal level of responsibility. I hated that my manager left me alone to deal with this individual who I expressed a concern about, and I turned out to be right. And then my manager wasn't around any longer, and he did not inform another manager to maybe come over and float and hang out with me. Nothing like that. I feel abandoned a lot of the time. And that is another conversation that I have to bring up. I could be a veteran of 30 years at that fucking place. When I say something that requires that you be present, period. Stop walking away from your responsibilities. And this is a fight, quote unquote fight, that I have been having with every single manager we hire for like 4 years now. I don't understand why they get comfortable doing that. And then you wonder why people don't stay. The only reason I stay is because I get hungry, I need to eat, and I kind of want to keep the roof over my head. But outside of that, it's like, uh-uh. So yeah, you guys, that's pretty much it. I know you guys have left some comments, so I'm gonna take a moment to go over those. Raishi or Rishi says, stay strong. I appreciate that because trust me, it's becoming increasingly difficult. And that's the thing that I think keeps me going. I keep telling myself, well, I'm an 11-year vet, I can do this and stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, I wouldn't allow for somebody to remain in an abusive relationship, you know? So I feel like I'm doing that to myself. I'm allowing myself to stay in an abusive place, you know? So sometimes I'm like, okay, I got this, I'm strong. I have done this for however many years now. If I were to add up my time, there goes, but it doesn't make it suck any less, you know? And I don't think that this is something that I should just normalize because I don't want to inadvertently become that person who I get so used to tolerating this that I make it normal and it has an effect on me whose consequences I won't see until later on. See what I mean? But anyway, they're just energy vampires. Don't let them suck you. You are absolutely right. That is exactly how my supervisors from way back in the day described it to me. They said that on one occasion, one of my managers was pretty crude. She said that the person I had who gave me a hard time back in those days needs to get laid. that is a problem that she has. And when she said it like that, I thought, you know what? I think I am beginning to see it. And then we hired another manager, and the phrase that she used was, you need to start looking at these people like they're mental health patients. And I'm like, well, I can do that. But the problem is that I'm not equipped to dealing with that because that's not my job. That shouldn't be my job. But I know that I cannot control that factor. I cannot control how the people who come here are going to behave. And that's my concern, though. I need to figure out what I'm going to do about those uncontrollable factors. And my policy right now is that the way I deal with it is that I don't react, because I know that's what they want. They want to be entertained so bad. And like I said to my manager today, I say nothing, because if I say nothing, they are the ones escalating themselves. If they start wilding up, if they get louder, if they get angrier and stuff, I'm like, they're getting mad because they want to. I'm not saying a damn word. And I know that if I say something, even if it's the right thing, even if I'm right, because the customer is wrong 100% of the time, because I'm engaging, I'm fueling it. And that is when I lose. That is when I guess I lose points, if you want to see it that way. So yeah, you guys, and honestly, the main point that I'm trying to illustrate here is that even if I went somewhere else, I know that this is a problem I'm going to see. My mom was a teacher and she had the same problem. This is a professional with a degree, with a 30-year experience. And she still began to despise her job because talking to the parents was impossible. And some of these parents were actually some of my customers. And that was the worst part. I'm like, yeah, this is the meaning of a community. The people you see, or the people I see, are the people that my boyfriend sees, are the people who you just never know, the people we share roads with. And when I went to the post office yesterday, I don't think I told you guys the story. I don't think I uploaded a story yesterday, but basically, I saw one of these clown customers giving hell to the clerk at the post office. She was going like, I have come over here in the past 2 months 3 times. I want to talk to a supervisor. I want to talk to the manager because this is ridiculous. I shouldn't have to be coming over here to tell you once again that my address is. And she was just yelling, being super loud and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that I just got out of a shift and I'm over here and I'm listening to someone who is an extension of something I deal with. But again, fortunately, this lady, I really don't see her much. And from what I understand, she's supposed to be banned from the store. I forget why she got banned years ago, but anyways. You gotta change job. Of course I gotta change jobs. You think that someone like me with my capacity, I'm meant to be a cashier? Lol. You hate your job? I mean, yeah, I hate my job because I don't really fulfill anything. And with these people now, it sucks. The element of cashiering as an art for what it is, I love it. I like pushing buttons. I like memorizing codes. I like to physically move my body. I like to be standing. I like to be playing games with the bagging techniques that I have, because sometimes customers bring a mixture of items and then I gotta get creative with what I'm going to bag together, what I'm going to separate, weight distribution, the science behind it. But what I'm not liking is the people and how unreasonable they are. And sometimes these people are so unreasonable that they come into the store looking for things because they were influenced into it by being online. Like, there was this one item that I'm not gonna mention, but basically months ago, you guys might remember some of the crazes we had during those times. Well, I experienced that at my store. Social media is manipulating the way that people consume things. And I hate that because I remember a time when that wasn't a problem. I remember a time when I could just show up at my job, people had their routines, people stuck to them, and we were not running out of supplies, say toilet paper during COVID, something stupid and unreasonable. And people just had a better sense of what items to actually get. But now people are acting under influences from people that you don't even fucking know. Imagine if I did that to you guys. Imagine if I said to all of you, tomorrow, all of you go buy all of the, I don't know, rotisserie chickens that you see at Walmart, something like that. And then all of a sudden, if I were like a big influencer, now everybody is buying up chicken that they didn't have in their agenda to buy. And the only people who are not going to obey my command are the vegans, and maybe some vegans might be willing to to make the exception in the name of worshiping me. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe that we were having a craze over a stupid adult sippy cup, a giant ass cup. I can't believe that we had a craze over salt. We had a craze over lab grown burgers. That's what I call the vegan non meat burger shit that they have out now. Things like that. See what I mean? Like, people are consuming now shit for the sake of consuming it, but it doesn't really serve a purpose. It's because you want to be a part of something. It sucks to be caught in that crossfire because I want nothing to do with that. That's not what I show up for. So, yeah, customer service, it's always been challenging. I enjoyed the art of it, but now I'm not enjoying the factors that I have to deal with that I used to not deal with before, but no one is talking about how to deal with it at the job. People have mental health problems. Some people are too, I don't know, their minds are just burnt from something, like maybe you're medicated or maybe you're not taking your medicine. That is another problem we have. There are some people who act out and they say, oh, I'm sorry, it's probably because I haven't taken my meds yet. And I'm like, what? That is not part of my job description. That is a hazard and nothing else. And see what I mean? We're just ignoring this, we're just getting through the day, but we're not really coming up with a plan to actually address this and ensure that the worker A does not face unfair repercussions, B, it's understood that we're doing our part best as we can, and this person is just unreasonable, and C, that we get backed up. See what I mean? That is my biggest worry, that we have this culture of the customer's always right. And I'm like, no, a lot of the times they're wrong. Sometimes they're right, very seldom, but more often than not, they're wrong. And there are people who you know, because if you stay for long enough at one place, you'll learn who they are. There are people who genuinely show up in there and they think they know you. It's kind of like a parasocial relationship, except that they get to see you in person every day. They think they know you because you wear a name tag and they know your name and you've been there for a while. They know which department you work and stuff like that. And they think that just because they know you from frequency, that they get comfortable. They try to cross certain boundaries. And like I have said before here, and I say this when I get to work too. I'm like, whatever y'all do, don't touch me. Don't put your hands on me. Because I'll be seeing how some of these people sometimes put their hands on my coworkers, and then my coworkers turn around and tell me, "Ooh, did you see how he touched me? Did you see how she put her hands on me? Da 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 da." And I'm like, "Yeah, let this person know that that's not okay. Like, I will dodge you if I see your hand entering a certain like distance from me. I'm already moving aside or backing up. I'm making it abundantly clear that I'm not into that." So yeah, you guys, that is my story. I feel better now sharing it, but it's one of those things. I just feel so trapped because as an uneducated person, I really don't have choices. And the choices that I could have, such as, say, working online, work from home, and all that shit, I honestly do not like relying on my computer. And it's not really a skill that I have. And sure, I could learn. But again, I need a job that takes me outside, because you guys know how I can stay home for months if you leave it up to me. I don't want to do that. I still want to go out. I still want to talk to people, meet people, continue to strengthen the relationships I have. Whereas if I start working from home, that's going to change. And if I switch to a job where I'm not facing people too much and working in the back of the house, that's fun for a little bit, but at some point, I need to be out. I need to be facing people because I like to see how what I'm doing is directly relevant to the person we're serving. Does that make sense? Like me as a cashier, me ringing your things up accurately and bagging them mindfully and things like that, that makes a difference for you. I am producing something of value with my job. But if I'm on the back of the house, I don't see that. Even if I were, say, working in the kitchen, baking things or cooking things and follow food safety protocol and stuff like that, that's important. I like to be I'm like infantry. I like to be in the battlefield, put it that way. I'm not a behind the scenes person from like acting from the barracks or something like that. I don't know how to describe it or what to compare it to. But yeah, again, I like the act of working. I like my job, but I'm beginning to despise the people I'm serving because it doesn't feel like these people value that anymore. They are getting very bold, very comfortable. It's like the little kids that we be hearing about, how they talk back to teachers. They don't respect authority. I'm not respected as a professional, which you may not think that someone like a cashier is professional, but yeah, every job ever has an element of professionalism. If you were to encounter me, you will see it in my demeanor, you will hear it in my cadence, my vocabulary, the way that I explain things and how I'm focused on you and all those things. But see what I mean? You as a customer, you have to demonstrate manners as well. You have to be a professional customer in the same manner that I'm a professional worker. I feel like that's lost. I'm telling you, these motherfuckers come up to you and they don't even say hi. You will say hi to them and they'll just start vomiting orders at you. There's like no courtesy. And that's why every word that you go, it kind of sucks. And honestly, I prefer to do things on my own sometimes. I am so simple and so easy that I would rather avoid interacting with anybody at all rather than risking an interaction that to me is offensive. Even when I'm a customer, when I'm not actually working, when I'm the one being served, I still behave as if I'm on the clock. I still have that protocol, manners, and all those things. I don't skip that. But yeah, I guess not everybody values that now. And for me, the most appalling thing is I keep using this as an example, but I see these little demons that people talk about online, and my mom had first hand experience with them. how children be talking back to you. They tell you to shut up. They demand things from you. They don't say please or thanks or anything like that. Sometimes I get the occasional kid customer whose parents are teaching them how to interact with you, and that's great because these are parents that don't give me issues anyway. They're like the A plus customers. But sometimes I get that one parent who is dominated by their children, and because they're being dominated by their children, they have like a bad attitude already. They can't find their card. They're getting frustrated with themselves. Then they talk to you a little rough, and some of them say, sorry, my hands are full, but some of them just don't. They will snatch the receipt from you and walk off because the child is driving them crazy, and they don't even say thanks. Sometimes I have to holler at them and be like, hey, the machine is asking one more question. You're not even completing the transaction. You will walk the fuck out without confirming that your card, A, was accepted, and B, it finished the transaction. I could ask for $50 of cash back for myself, you know, if I were really evil, or the person behind you, the next customer, if they wanted to, they could select to give themselves cash back. And of course, I can, what is it, stop them from doing that because I can just leave the money in my drawer and explain to my managers that, hey, the customer walked out without taking their money, and then the person behind them is the one who performed this transaction. So technically, this is not a legit transaction. But see what I mean? Like, you're being dominated by little kids. That is the future of this country. That doesn't scare you? Damn. Hi there, I totally understand what you're talking about. I just got fired from a job because I was a hard worker. See, that, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that, but that is also what I fear because I'm thinking to myself that I understand that I'm a good worker, but I too am a human being with sentiments, and I can feel how my performance is declining a little bit because my morale is taking another hit. And my morale is something that I can maintain pretty well, but when I feel discouraged because of how often this stuff happens and how little support I feel like I'm getting, that is when I start kind of throttling back on my performance. I'm like, well, what the fuck is the point of me putting effort into this if at the end of the day I'm going to be penalized, if I'm going to suffer from this? See what I mean? Where do you work? I work customer service, and I am never going to disclose where I work until I leave it. But yeah, it's again, and I will continue to say this because this is something that comes from my family lineage. My mom has said this, my brother has said this, my dad, of course. But we are working people. We like to work. We can get up at like 3 a.m. to catch a flight at 5 a.m., things like that, and we can operate on 2 hours of sleep, and you would never know that we couldn't sleep the night before. That's just how we're built. Again, it just really, really, really sucks that you're encountering people who have their baggage, their issues, but they're trauma dumping on you. They're lashing out at you when you have nothing to do with that. And in the past, I could handle it. I was fine with it because it wasn't something that happened very often, and it was easy to see coming anyway because you knew who the salty Karens were. But now it's like every fucking day, even the well behaved folks are beginning to malfunction. See what I mean? And that's just really frustrating. Let's see. If you were to change jobs, what other line of work would you do? See, unfortunately, that is something that I really cannot even consider because I don't have skills. That's just the reality. I don't have education. I don't have an education. I don't have any skills. But if I were to aspire for something else, what I wanted to really, 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 truly do was teaching. And that's out of the question because damn, I am not willing to set foot on a classroom, especially with the way that I saw school was being managed toward the end of my time in school. And then I saw what my mom went through toward the end of her career some months ago. And the stuff that I can corroborate that people are sharing online as well. And you guys know that I hate kids. If I were to teach, I want to teach the older ones, but those are definitely just as bad, you know? And the reason I say I like teaching is because not only am I from a family of teachers, of course, but I train people at my job and I see the difference between the way that I explain things versus how they interpret information that they receive online from a computer or from a guidebook versus being trained by someone who isn't very good at adapting to the learner's learning style. You know what I mean? Some people, you just gotta figure out how they learn so they can start doing the job. And an example of this that I can provide is the last person I trained. I started off the training session with the same question I always ask, which is, what is your learning style? Do you need me to talk you through it and you're fine? Do you need to see things or do you need to do things? And I have been getting a lot of doers. And then I said, I like that you say that you're a doer because that's how I am. I have to touch, I have to feel, I have to move, I have to just grasp things physically. And if you happen to be of a learning style that matches mine, given my experience, it'll be so much easier for me to advise you on how to do things. If you're an auditory learner, I know for a fact that is something that I can do just fine because if you guys have been watching me for a little while, you know that I can take a topic and pull it apart many different directions. And in in fact, my Dusty's freaking distracting me. I don't know what he's messing with over there. And as I was saying, in fact, for auditory learners, those tend to excite me because I look at it as, let me see how much information I can spit out at you and how orderly I can do this. And I'm always surprised by how much info I can drop on somebody and how well they can absorb it too. And do you know that they're absorbing it and they're paying attention because they'll start asking you questions? Nothing makes me happier than someone asking me questions. And the auditory learners are, I think, funner to train than the visual learners because the visual learners, they'll watch you do it, but they may not necessarily be ready to do it right after you. And even if I try to reinforce what I'm showing them, it's kind of hard for me because even though I'm explaining, of course, with words, what I'm showing them, I'm not sure that I'm good at showing the visual learner how to learn because I personally have never really been a visual learner. I was a visual learner briefly in high school, but then something happened to me that in the middle of my first year of high school, toward the end, I should say, my learning style just transformed. I started writing everything, coloring everything, drawing everything. And I think that auditory learner, I'm probably good at expressing myself because I used to be an auditory learner through all of middle school. So much so that to this day, I still remember exact words and phrases that my classmates used, that my teachers used, where I was at, and how I heard it, what kind of tone they said it in. And with visual learners, sometimes I feel like if I don't show them things in a clean order from the get go, their ability to learn may be contaminated a little bit, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, I forgot to show you this. Oh, but before, look at this, look at that, look at that. In order for me to be an effective teacher to the visual learner, I need to have all of my materials ready. And what I mean by that is at the register, for example, I tell them this button, know where it's at, this is what it does. We may not get an example of it today, but when we do, I'll be there to show you. And sometimes I try to show them situationally what a specific button does, but they don't get it because the situation is not happening. And it's not happening with the detail that it needs to happen for them to recognize that it's time to deploy this specific button. They are aware that there's a button to address a specific instance, but you cannot expect for this person to know to press a certain button if they haven't encountered the situation. See what I mean? That's why I'm not too wild about the visual learner. Now, the kinesthetic learner, I would be like, hey, look at this button, let's press it, this is what it's going to do. And then I can just be like, the last time that I used it, these are the patterns that I had to follow. This is what we had to do on the book, blah, blah, blah. But for the visual learner, I feel like I shouldn't go beyond the point of pointing out where the button is because, again, the situation is not unfolding. And I feel like the kinesthetic learner will get it because they will remember their shifting, how their hand was shifting as I explained what the button does. It doesn't make a lot of sense when I put it like this, but it was a challenge that we had the last time I trained somebody who was a visual learner versus the last kinesthetic learner I trained. And then I guess outside of teaching, another thing that has always interested me is something that will never pay me, which is writing. You guys, I can write for hours. I have done that shit. I can write for 6 hours straight, 8, you name it. And it's one of those things that I just like the act of writing. I like to trace things. I like the feeling of making the pages come to life, or so it seems, with my words. And my own writing to me is like my own art style. It also helps me with my memory, things like that. But realistically, what can I write about? And writing nowadays is almost not cool. What's cool now is to type and things like that. See what I mean? And then ultimately, I love animals. I could hang out with them all day long, but I just cannot imagine being able to care for animals as a job. I don't think I could go to like a pet store or something like that. And it's honestly not something that I'm trying to do currently. It's not something I'm as wild about as much as I used to be, say, when I was in school. I used to think, yeah, if I don't get to be a geologist, then maybe I'll take up biology instead and try to figure out a way to work directly with animals specifically. But yeah, there are some animals that I'm legit a chicken toward. sometimes even Dusty, I have to like hide from him a little bit. It's like, Dusty, you're like demanding, okay? You feel like work. But yeah, animals make me really happy. Yes, exactly. Others' disrespect can affect how we'll deal with others. I have been in customer service. Yeah, customer service, again, it's one of those things that I think customer service is one of the jobs that has the most potential to be rewarding, but it can only be rewarding if there is cooperation from all sides. And currently, another issue I have with customers that I have kind of mentioned before, but I'll mention it again, is especially during the holidays. People want to create this stupid, perfect experience, and I don't understand why. Why is it that you value the holidays so much? Why do you have to have the pumpkin pie? Why do you have to have the turkey? Why do if one of those ingredients is out, find a way to supplement it. I'm a very solution oriented person. I just cannot imagine making a scene about an item missing and act like there are no other choices, there are no other alternatives. Like, oh my god, I came here for oranges, but there are only grapefruits. Well, I don't like grapefruit, but there's pineapple. Yeah, let me have pineapple today instead. See what I mean? I dead ass have people come through my line to, I say, hello, how are you? And they'll be like, I'm so disappointed that I came here and you didn't have, I don't know, red apples. And I'm like, oh, okay. Were you able to ask somebody back there? Or how do you feel about Honeycrisp? I don't tell them that. All I tell them is, were you able to ask somebody? No. Would you like me to find out? It's possible we have them in the back. No. Okay, bitch, shut up then. Because clearly you're not going to give me the opportunity to intervene. Don't tell me. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. Tell me only if you hope to get action from me. And if I mention something like, were you able to ask? Clearly, I'm trying to escalate it because maybe I'm asking because at the time that you're visiting, it's possible that we're breaking down the truck. And usually, when we're breaking it down, we can access the product that you're looking for. Sometimes the people from the department may have to leave to tend to the truck so that it gets broken down faster, and by extension the product will make it out to the sales floor faster, and you won't have to be disappointed about being here and not finding your stupid apples. See what I mean? And that is why when I go somewhere and my favorite thing is not there, I will look at it as either I can try something new or I'll come back later. But some people act like that is the only option you had. This is a retail store, this is a big store with many choices. And even if you have dietary restrictions, there is still options for you. But when you show up to this place for one thing and you have the mindset of is this or nothing, that is a problem that you are creating for yourself. You. And that's what I wish people would see. That's true. I'm a visual learner. I did get to see when you posted that. Does that bother you when they say they need a specific item and you have to go to the back to get it? It doesn't bother me because I'm a cashier. I don't have to go anywhere. All I have to do is dial the department or tell my manager to dial them if I don't have access to dialing the department. And what I mean by that is sometimes I have the phone and I can contact them directly, but if I get no response, my manager has the freedom to free roam more than me because I'm not supposed to leave the register. And because I'm a person who dead ass does not have behavioral problems, I don't have problems being at my register for 8 hours straight. And I mean 8 hours straight except for my breaks. Some people like to leave the register and wander around, hide from managers and all that. I don't do that. I came here to be at the register for the entirety of my shift. I don't understand the people who just have to walk out. I understand if you have to go to the bathroom. I do it sometimes too. But sometimes people go to the bathroom to bullshit. And we know that you're bullshitting. It's like you have a pattern. And it happens many times per shift. But yeah, literally me asking the customer if I can help them find something is part of my job. And even if it wasn't part of my job, it's natural for me to suggest that anyway. Because, like I have said before, I'm a solution oriented person. And even before I got the job, I remember times when I went out shopping with my mom. And one time a cashier overheard mom and I discussing how we thought we could find something, but we couldn't. Let's say that we were looking for, I don't know, toothpaste that had apple flavor. And let's say that that's a item available only during the spring. Well, the cashier was like, "Oh, actually, if you don't mind, I can get somebody to show you where that item is." And then mom and I ultimately said, "Don't worry about it." We ended up grabbing a different one. But since you told us that that is an item that you do have here, we'll make sure to ask next time. We'll try to look for it next time. And if we can't find it, then we'll make sure to reach out. Thanks. Something like that. But, I ask customers if they had trouble with something, if they were able to ask, because it's just natural to want to do that. If you're telling me, "Oh man, I was hoping to find a pumpkin, but I didn't see it," most of the time I have the answer. I can be like, "Oh yeah, the pumpkins, as opposed to being where you're used to seeing them, now they're going to be, I don't know, next to some other display, or next to the window, next to the flowers," something like that. See what I mean? And that's the whole point. But what bothers me about these people is when they will bitch and moan to you and you will offer them to check and they'll decline. At that point, what I do is I shut up and I don't say anything because I gotta conserve my energy too. Because what I'm doing with you, I have to do it hundreds of times more in the shift. See what I mean? So I'm pretty selective about how much interaction I put out because it is draining. It can get to you if you're not careful. And I'm at a point now where I know how much is enough before I feel overstimulated to the point that it's draining me. Kind of like cats. Cats, you start petting them and they love it, but at some point it's like they want you to stop. Well, socially, I am no different. At some point, I have enough. Sometimes, though, now that we're discussing me needing to go to the back and getting it, sometimes I wish that I could physically be the one to head out and retrieve the item because I move so fast that I know I can go back there, grab it, come back, and the machine is pretty much going to be printing the receipt by the time I hand it to the customer after scanning it if I take my scan gun with me. Little tricks like that. And I know it because I have done it. There have been times in which my manager has been tied up and people from the other department have been tied up, and I'm like, ma'am, give me 1 second and I will go grab it for you. It's like I can teleport. I'm like Jesus Christ walking on water, but that only comes from experience. And the only regrets I have had is my insecurity when I was new got in my way. And sometimes I just waited for the right thing to happen, which is me waiting for either my manager or someone from the department to come over. And then I'm like watching them from a distance and I see where they got the item from and I knew it. And I'm like, damn, I am so good at being obedient when I'm told to don't leave the register unless there's an emergency, of course, that I could have done that. I could have walked out and grabbed something and come back and done it fast, but I just didn't because I like to respect the protocol. And in the past, when I did that, I did have a manager who was intense for no reason. I think it was her way of feeling like she had control of everything. And one time I did that. I took the initiative to run, get something for the customer, came back, and then she said, I'm glad that you helped the customer, but in the future, remember that I'm the one who's supposed to go back there and get it. I'm like, okay, if you want to go back there so bad, sure. But I'm the kind of person who, again, severely solution oriented. And that seems to be my death. Well, there you guys have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to bail now because honestly, I said everything that I needed to say. And I need to do a little something now before I head out to bed. But thanks for joining me. I appreciate it a lot. And even though these past 3 days have been really draining, I'm not gonna give up. Like, I've done this many times over, and experience only makes you better. It also makes it a little tiresome because of the monotony that may be associated with it, but again, it takes a lot for me to get genuinely bored into running away from something. So I'll be fine. It's just part of my journey, and I just so happen to like to share it as opposed to keeping it to myself via writing like I used to. All right, bye.